And we have two fantastic women who actually live right here in Boca Raton, and they're authors. You probably remember hearing Karen Signell, who wrote the book Smokey Bear, the cub who left his paw prints on history. And today we're also going to talk to Annie Mack, who wrote Welcome to Florida, Ancient Egyptian Geese, and Karen Signell worked with her on that too. They're really co-authors. But even though it's a small book, this Welcome to Florida, Ancient Egyptian Geese, I couldn't keep my hands off of it. I wasn't prepared for this. I thought it was just going to be some sort of a geese book, but it was more than that. So let's start off with you, Annie. I didn't know that there were even Egyptian geese here in South Florida. How do you know that they're Egyptian geese?
Well, where I live, we have a lot of muscovy ducks around. Those are the ones with the knobby red things on their faces. But one day, Karen and I were walking around, and we saw two birds that we'd never seen before. Karen recognized them from her time in Egypt. They'd been on the walls of mosaics, and we checked with a birder friend, and she looked in her Audubon book and pronounced that they were Egyptian geese. So there were normally two of them walking around the community, and one day one of them had disappeared, and the next day the mate had not reappeared, and I think we all assumed that one had died, and we felt bad for the remaining goose, because where we live is an elder community, and people do lose their mates. So we were very sad until one day the second goose reappeared with 7 babies.
My goodness!
And pictures of the geese started to appear on bulletin boards, the babies, of course, because they were darling. And we thought, oh, why not write a book about this with the pictures that our neighbors had taken?
Well, you know, that's a great story. And Karen, of course, you love animals anyway,
yes,
so this was your meat.
Oh, yeah.
You really wanted to do that. But let's get back to that. So now they have the responsibility that the two of them have come back together, and they have the responsibility of rearing these little ducklings, I guess we call
goslings.
Goslings. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just not familiar with geese, but goslings. And what's happened to them today?
There are many Egyptian geese still around. We don't know if they're the babies grown up or the grandbabies
that came back. But I'm surprised that you haven't seen them, because some people here in the Boca Raton or southern Florida area have seen them, and they're unmistakable. They have these bright pink, long legs, and they're big, 3 times the size of any duck. And they have beautiful feathers and markings. You know, they'll have circles around their, dark circles around their eyes, and they have a medallion on the breast in front, and wings that glimmer in the sun with green and turquoise and other colors, and they walk in a very dignified manner. In fact, let me tell you how one part of this book came about that runs through the book. When I first saw them, I thought, those are the Egyptian geese I saw down in the Valley of the Tombs in Egypt. And then a friend was walking nearby, Lillian, who lives near us, and she said, why don't you name them? I said, well, how about Caesar and Cleopatra? I mean, it's off the...
Perfect. But then you can tell the difference between them.
Yes, the female is bigger, and she is the one that screeches. The male makes a more of a huffing sound. Like
yes, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Right.
But he can be very brave because Anne had her little dog out there one day walking around, and she started to run up to him to chase him. And he lowered his head, and he ran toward her, hissing, and she turned tail pretty quickly.
Wow.
Yeah. So
but who did these beautiful pictures in the book?
Well, our neighbors were taking photos, and Karen took a lot of them, and I took some of them, and I also composed some of them with the wonderful Photoshop, which enabled me to put together a picture of the nest, which was actually taken by one of our staff who climbed up. It was on the roof of one of the carports. And so our staff member climbed up a tree, took a picture of the nest, and then I was able to Photoshop in eggs. And Slama, our friendly staff member, also took a picture when the goose was there sitting on the eggs.
But I'd say 99% of the photos, these color photos, are ones that people took. And sometimes I'd be crawling on my stomach to get close enough to take a picture.
Well, but I think that's a lovely thing that you have your community interested in this. It's bird watching. It's funny. Bird watching has never been something I've had time for, but I do remember we went on a media trip and we had choices. Do you want to go on that attraction? Do you want to go here, that? And I chose bird watching.
Oh.
Bill and I both went on bird watching. And for about 2 hours, I saw birds which I would normally never see because you have to be shown how to see a bird.
Yeah.
And you must know that.
Yeah.
So I could be a bird watcher.
Oh.
Ah, yes.
Oh.
Well, we find a lot of people come up now and tell us stories about Egyptian geese, as if we know a lot about, as if we are birders. We were lucky to find a book of research that helped us with the Cleopatra part of the book, and looked on the internet for things about geese and how they reproduce and take care of their young. There's a scene that's one of my favorites where there are 7 babies on the roof. Shall I read a little bit?
Yeah, I wanted you to do that. And you're now listening to Annie Mack, who's one of the co-authors.
We see 7 fluffy bodies struggle up to the top of the pink tiles and teeter backward and forward at the edge of the roof. These are Caesar and Cleopatra, who are down on the pavement. All but one tumble off their perches and fall straight down onto the hard surface, where they lie as helpless as dandelion puffs. The littlest female is still on the roof, peeping continuously that the rest of us should wait for her. What a calamity! Is this really how a goose's life begins?
Well, and so, that's like they're kicking them out of the nest in a sense, except they're not up there. They're just saying, come on, get down, right? Must be very scary for them.
Those little babies, but they stand right up after they catch their breath.
And so they don't really hurt themselves when they fall.
No.
They're not like cats.
It's amazing to us humans.
Well, so talking to Karen Signell, who wrote, of course, Smokey Bear, which is a fantastic book, and we did interview you a few weeks ago. But Karen, the thing that charms me always is where someone else would just write a documentary kind of a book, you add humanity. You add as though you know these ducks, they're part of your family, and you and Annie must have a lot of fun talking to each other and making believe that that's really what they're saying.
Well, it seems very real when you're writing all the time, and she really is a gifted writer, and she knows how to cut things down. Whereas I'm very expansive, and I notice all the little ways they move and talk to each other and their feelings and the individuality too. Different goslings right away seem very different kinds of, I was going to say, signs of people. There was the bold one that was the first to leap off the roof and scramble after the Caesar, and then there's a little one that Anne just read about, we called Wait for Me.
Wait for me.
She always way behind the others and scrambling, running her little legs to catch up.
Kind of like you when you were a kid.
I think so. Yeah, I was the littlest kid in the family. So
yeah, we found when we worked very well together on this book. I tend to be cynical, and I was able to enjoy doing the voice of Cleopatra, who longs for her old kingdom in Egypt and regrets having ended up as a mere goose. Karen is the one that brings the heart to it that you mentioned, the love and the sweetness, and I'm more the cynical.
Get on with it, right?
But also, Anne has the humor. That I was just rereading the book this morning, and so much of it amused me, and that she has that too. It's not just a grumbly kind of, way. No, she really has that.
Is there
humor.
a particular place you'd like to read that you think is special in the book? That because I mean, I think people, and we haven't really talked about people getting this book. And let me just tell you how you can do that. And I don't find a website. Maybe you can help me, Annie.
Amazon.
How would someone buy this book?
Well, an online bookstore.
Okay, Amazon. So they can go to Amazon and get something. It's called Welcome to Florida, Ancient Egyptian Geese by Annie Mack and Karen Signell. Okay.
Yes, it's interesting that when we published the book, and we were able to publish it very cheaply through an outfit called Create Space, which is Amazon's gift to authors who know something about computers. They did not want us to put on the back, you can purchase this at Amazon. So that's why I said an online bookstore. But indeed, it's Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any of them.
Okay, well, come on, Karen, I know that you want to speak for one of those little goslings or the mother or the father, Cleopatra or Caesar.
Well, why don't I begin at the beginning of the book, the first page here?
Begin at the beginning.
Yeah. I was Cleopatra, queen of Egypt. I commanded the imperial navy, ruled a great empire and an opulent court, gave birth to a son with one Roman general, and fell deeply in love with another. And now look at me, a lowly female goose, and not even in my beloved Egypt, but in some strange, humid land, with 3 males tagging after me wherever I fly. Now as we wing, I'll just skip a little bit. Now as we wing our way across a patchwork of buildings, parking lots, streets, and greenery, I see below a place that reminds me of my beloved palace on the Mediterranean. Stately buildings, fountains, palm trees, flowering shrubs, plenty of grass, which is mostly what I, as a goose, like to eat. Which reminds me, as Cleopatra, I ate birds like me regularly. As I remember, I would ask my servants to fatten up hundreds at a time for a weekly grand banquet. The palace chefs would roast the geese with herbs and serve them with honey, fresh peas with mint, sourdough bread, and our prize figs, all on dishes of gold.
Karen, I'm laughing if I wish this were TV because it's amazing that you could take this goose sitting there and reinvent what that goose is thinking in terms of history. Of course, you're well-traveled and all, but it does take a person with fantasy. I don't think anyone who is pretty ho-hum could do something like this. So, Annie, it must be fun, though. How do you collaborate, though? Does she ever do something where you say, no, I know you said you wanted her to cut things short. So, does she just start and then you kind of look at it, or do you have your own paragraphs?
I think in this book, I did a first version, which was a little simple book for kids, for children. And as we learned more about Cleopatra, there was a wonderful research book about Cleopatra that we mention in the book. And as Karen said, as our neighbors suggested that we name the geese and tell it from their point of view, the book became very different. Now, as I said, I think I did a first draft, but it was it had humor, but it was kind of dry. And then Karen adds, she's great with adjectives, verbs. She's much more aware of the details, the specific sensory details of life, whether you're a human or an animal or a bird. What that grass is like, what the little blue flowers are like, what the sunlight is like. Whereas I just am sort of in the human realm of ha-ha and philosophy, how the Cleopatra as a goose is remembering the philosophies she knew back before Christianity and she's noticing the difference, or her she's kind of losing her memory, as a lot of us do as we get older a little bit. And she can't remember the 4 forces that are the primary force, the secondary force, the imminent force, and you see her as she's trying to recall these things that we would have learned in high school or college, that, like integration. I was a math major, and I hear the word differentiation now, and I think, what in the world? Once I knew what differentiation meant in calculus. Now I have no idea. So Cleopatra is suffering some of the symptoms of not only coming down to realizing the realities of getting older by giving up her notion of queenliness.
Well, the other thing was that, in a way, this story is telling the story of those of us who come down to Florida. We've been in Colorado or San Francisco or whatever, in the Midwest, New York. We come down here and suddenly we've lost a great realm of our house, all these good restaurants we were used to, all those things. And we're not a lowly life, but it's
not a familiar life.
Yeah, it's a different life. So in a way, I think maybe consciously or unconsciously we follow that too.
Well, let me say, when I was reading this and listening to you, the first thing that comes to my mind is Elizabeth Taylor. It's Cleopatra. Every time you say Cleopatra, that's my picture of Cleopatra, right? Because I don't know what Cleopatra really looked like before that. I mean, so I have to go back now. It makes me want to go back and say, what did Cleopatra look like?
Well, I looked at that movie lately, the first part of it, but having read the scholar, his name is Dwayne Roller, I found that we have a Hollywood idea of her, which came from the Romans. See, she had a son with Caesar called Caesarius. And the wife back home, Caesar's wife back home, knew about it, and she was furious.
Typical.
So, and the powers that be in Rome did not want to have him inherit things. And so they heard about this exotic queen who had a fabulous realm. She had her own great navy that actually helped Caesar and Antony when they needed her navy. And she was a great scholar and knew many languages from her Greek Greek father and her Egyptian mother. So she could actually speak to all the people in Egypt who considered her a reincarnation of Isis. And they worshipped her, but she also could speak to them in Egyptian, which was really unusual at the time. So she'd go down her barge with all these perfumes and all sorts of falderal. It was just a great sight. And she was extraordinarily wealthy.
So, Karen, you're making me want to get a book on Cleopatra and just read it because of your birds. Because of your geese. Excuse me. I don't.
They are birds.
They're birds.
But it's funny that I don't. But we have this lake, and I told you, around our building, and a lot of times I'm walking our dog, and it's in the evening, and you hear sounds you don't hear during the day. And I'm wondering if they're fighting with each other, what they're doing, move over, it's my space, or I don't know what they're doing. But you're making me know that there's a different world out there than we really see. Right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Well, I have to really share this with everyone. Welcome to Florida, Ancient Egyptian Geese with Annie Mack and Karen Signell, and you can get this on Amazon.com. But I'm having so much fun talking to both of you. You're both authors. I know that I haven't even talked to you, Annie, about Coco, the Canine Detective Mystery Series, which sounds delightful. And, of course, we know about you, Karen, and you wrote something that's really important, Wisdom of the Heart, Working with Women's Dreams, which we'll have to get into sometime. But, of course, the way I met you was through Smokey Bear.
Yes.
And so you must spend a lot of time at your computers.
Oh, yes, indeed.
I mean, just think about your life maybe 20 years ago when we didn't have computers. I guess we typed.
Yes.
We still were somewhere doing something if you're creative. But I thought about you, and I had never asked you, are you an artist? Because you are an artist with words.
Oh, thank you. I hadn't heard that nice compliment before.
But I would think that would be something that might be one of the things you're going to take up if you haven't done it yet.
Well, I have started some watercolor earlier in my life because we had a family friend who is a great watercolor artist, and he even got me a palette, the kind of palette he designed. And I love watercolors because you can't just be tight and think I want to do this or that with oil. You just have to slop it on, and then you see the colors are so bright, and you can put one color with another color, just the shade you want. So
watercolor is a very difficult art medium.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah, that's why I do water. The ocean. At the ocean, I'll do the ocean and try to get the color, hold it up and get the color just right.
And clouds.
Mix things and clouds. I'm good at clouds. But I guess I'm mainly a writer.
Yeah, well, it's good, though. But I like the pictures in here. You have a lot of pictures, too. I think without the pictures, as good as the book it reads, it wouldn't be the same, because now we can really look at the little babies following the mommy. Yeah. And does the mommy and daddy geese, do they? I'm getting all mixed up with my geese and my goslings. Do they mate for life?
Yes.
Oh, we didn't talk about that. That makes them really nice.
Yes.
They also, as a couple, they protect their little ones. In contrast to a lot of birds, like the muscovy ducks, the mother has sole care of the ducklings, but the Egyptian geese, the mother and father, and we have pictures of that, are both watching out for those babies because there's the threat of turtles coming up from the lakes and grabbing the little ones.
I read that in the book that I didn't know that turtles actually from down below grab the little feet and then drag them down.
Yeah, it's so sad because we'll see a musky duck with her fluffy little yellow and black ducklings going around, and there'll be maybe 6 of them, and then the next day we'll see there are only 5. And others say, did you see there are only 5 now? And then
pretty soon they're
just
none.
One little one, paddling after her fast.
No way!
Yeah.
How do we get rid of those turtles?
Well,
they're
no, I know you can do a turtle book next, and then
what you need is really good guardians like the Egyptian geese. So when they swim with the little goslings, one will be in front, and then between them are all the little ones, and then one behind, and they're really watching.
Well, why can't they sit on the mommy and daddy as they're going along?
In the water.
No, sit on their backs
on their
they're
backs.
walking.
Yeah, some ducks do.
Some do.
Ducklings do that.
Right.
I've seen that. Yes.
And so, what happens after they grow up? Do they still stay together in any way, or no?
No, well, if you read the book, you'll find out.
Oh, right. I didn't get that far, I guess. Because, but if they're in your environment, do they stay in that environment or do they leave?
Well, these all flew away.
They flew away. Mm-hmm. And are they want to be where the south is, or they want to? Because in the winter, don't they come down here where it's warm?
I don't know. I don't know that part.
You have to read your book.
They stay here all year.
Yeah, we have a couple now who've been here for some months. And they'll stand, if you're driving your car into the parking lot, sometimes they'll just be standing there and you wait. And they'll take their good time. They're very dignified and like they own the property.
Could they ever be pets?
Well,
had you thought about that? Because I know you both have dogs and you...
Well, we put a disclaimer at the end because to take pictures, we found ourselves wanting to feed the birds. Well, there are a lot of people who think that's a mistake, that wild animals should be left to find their own food and not become imprinted on humans or lazy, or I'm not sure what the argument is, but sometimes to get our pictures, we would have to break some rules, like feed the geese or let the dog off the leash.
Well, what do they eat actually in the natural?
Seeds and grass. Cleopatra said she mostly ate grass. I know.
But they don't eat other fish. They don't eat fish, do they?
I think they'll eat bugs. Bugs, yeah. Because you see them wandering around, looking at the grass and putting their rounded beaks down to eat something.
No, but seriously, what if you took, I don't say we're going to do that, but what if you took one of the little babies and brought it in?
And gave it a steak?
No, and just gave it seed. Could you actually have it as a pet?
Oh, well,
they poop.
Yeah.
Oh, they poop.
A lot, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But tell about your ducks.
Well, I was thinking that the two little rabbits, bunnies, baby rabbits that I found when I had rabbits and when I was a girl, and some vicious dog got into the hutch and killed the mother. So I took the two little ones, whom I called Ike and Tyke, and they were tiny, just in the cup of your hand, and brought them into the house, and they toilet trained right away, like a good little puppy would, and they hopped around, and they managed to hop up after a while, to hop up the little stairs and things.
And how long did you have them?
Oh, I think I had them for months. Some people have pet rabbits,
I know they do.
Yeah.
Some people even have pet pigs, because I was at someone's house and they had a pet pig.
Really?
And I didn't know there was such a thing until I heard this. I have to tell you, but it was cute, and they loved it. And the only thing is, you don't want it to get loose because there'll be some bacon that you'll be smelling somewhere.
They're very smart.
Yeah.
Pigs are. Yeah.
Well, this has been absolutely delightful. I mean, I never know when you're on what we're going to do, but I want to just tell everybody, Annie Mack and Karen Signell, and appreciate so much your coming in. We've been talking about Welcome to Florida, Ancient Egyptian Geese, but don't forget the wonderful book, Smokey Bear, by Karen, which is spectacular. We just did in the December issue, we did a review of it, and you would not put that book down either. So thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thank you for
Thanks
having
for having us. Yeah.
Great. Done.